navy blue of Victoria.
Handscomb uses his feet and goes again through mid-wicket. That's an even better shot from the Victorian captain.
Swept away very nicely by Nicole Bolton for four.
Oh, he's been given! That is 50. The man from Northcote.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Vic State Cricket Podcast. I'm Adam White as we go into the inner sanctum of Victorian cricket. It's our first episode. I'm going to be joined by a co-host very shortly by the name of Matt Short, who plays for the Victorian cricket team. Also on the show today we'll have Soph Molyneux and also Nick Fulton talking women's cricket and a legend series. We're going to have a legend of Victorian cricket to join us later on in David Hussey to go through his career. He's also in the news because he's back in the Victorian setup. But let's get straight into it. As I said, our co-host this week is Matt Short. Pete Handscomb is about to join us, but Matt, welcome.
Thanks, Whitey. I'm pretty keen and excited to get it all started, and looking forward to talking to Petey and Hust.
You got some tough questions for the boys?
I'm sure I'll come with a few, but we'll get the conversation rolling, and I'm keen to talk to Petey and see how his off-season's been. Now,
how's your off-season been before we speak to Pete? Because we're about to start the new year with some one-day cup matches either side of the grand final. Have you had a break? Did you go and play cricket in England over the winter period? You've been up in Darwin. What have you been doing?
Unfortunately for me, it's been pretty boring.
None of the above?
None of the above, yeah. I missed out on a couple of trips. I thought about heading to England, but I think after a long season last year, with a full Big Bash season in there as well and playing both formats here, I think the best thing for me was just to have a couple of months off. Ended up getting to Port Douglas for a week. Went over to Bali for a week as well with a couple of the young boys, which was good fun. But in terms of being back here, it was just normal pre-season for me. There was no trip to Darwin with the Renegades or the Stars, obviously. Being a striker, they didn't really have a team up there. So, it was just hit the nets here pretty early in June. And get to know a couple of younger boys that were around in Ash Chandra Singh and Campbell Callaway, which was good to have on board and get to know them. So, pretty quiet for me. Just hung here in Melbourne and, it was enjoyable.
All right. So as I said before, this is the first episode. So we thought we'd get things going by speaking to both captains. So Molyneux will join us shortly. But Pete Handcomb has been the captain of Victorian cricket for a long time now. And, I can ask you, how many years has it been, Pete? Welcome.
I'm not sure, Whitey. It seems to just keep rolling into one, especially those last sort of 3 years with COVID. That just feels like it went for 10 years and it went for 1 year. So, it's just good that this season's getting underway and excited to see what your co-host has got for us as well.
Yes. So I'll ask you the first question before I can let Matt loose. How different does it feel that COVID's not around anymore, or does it feel like it used to be and it's just like putting an old pair of shoes on?
It definitely feels different. I think we got used to sort of life in bubbles, sort of protecting ourselves and making sure that we stayed safe and stayed healthy for the season. Obviously COVID's still around, so we're making sure that we're still doing all the right things there. But at least in terms of playing cricket and then also being able to relax after games and after a week away, we can actually go and see our friends and family, which we haven't been able to do for a little while. It's going to make the season feel a lot better and a lot more fun, I think.
Go for it, Matt. What have you got for him?
Well, just to back up on that, speaking of family, you've added a young Jack to the family. How's he going, and how have you sort of changed your approach to this season?
Yeah, well, my pre-season's obviously been very different to yours. We had the arrival of little Jack. It's a game changer. Life at home has definitely changed. My wife Sarah taken to motherhood unbelievably well. So she's been doing all the heavy lifting, and I've been sitting back and changing the odd nappy here and there, and basically getting the good cuddles when I can. And then when it's time for a feed or time for a sleep, Sarah jumps in and does an amazing job. So, no, we're pretty excited to have him. It was a bit of a scary start. He was a bit premature there, and we sort of spent a month in hospital. But all good now. He's flying. He's putting on weight, and we're starting to get a couple of smiles out of him. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Fantastic. Well, I want to ask you, Matt, about that whole thing about COVID now not being an issue, and probably to both of you. does it make it less intense? Because, I mean, you were talking before, Pete, about being bubbles and what that was like, and cricket becomes such a focus. It's almost like it's cricket, whereas now you can, be a dad, or in your case, see friends and family matter a lot more. Do you think it'll make it easier to play cricket?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people talk about like the balance that you have outside of cricket, and keeping your mental health in check. So I've definitely found that, sort of post-COVID, I guess, being able to get outside and heading down the coast, there's no Great Wall around the city now, so you can actually get out and about and get down the coast for a surf, or if you're playing golf, heading back home to Ballarat to see the family. It's definitely something that I think I struggled with personally during the couple of years of COVID, sort of being stuck inside, and I think making cricket the primary focus there. But being able to get back outside and doing things with people and whatnot, it's been a game changer. I think being able to get back into that.
How have you found that, Pete? Just that we often talk about cricket perspective, how it makes the more you play, the better you get, because you understand failure, you understand success. But excuse me, it has been very different for a cricketer in recent times.
Yeah, it has been. You haven't been able to have that release or that opportunity sort of to get away from the game as much in the last 3 years. So it's definitely felt different. But I think this year, we'll be able to get out, we'll be able to have more fun. We can see our family and friends and put that perspective back into life and realise that cricket isn't the be all and end all, and we're not cricketers. We're people first and foremost. We're fathers, we're brothers, we're husbands and friends first, and then cricket comes second, which I think ultimately helps you play your cricket as well, because you go out there with a bit of freedom and you sort of take that pressure off yourself a little bit. And you see that sometimes when people have kids and then they come out and they've barely trained or they've barely slept, and they start making runs or taking lots of wickets. So I'm hoping little Jack has timed that nicely with me, and that starts to happen as well.
Fantastic.
I reckon just on that too, like, we were so lucky to be able to get seasons in and be able to travel as much as we did in the end, and play the amount of games. So credit to the people out there that that aren't professional cricketers or professional sports people. Like, they would have done it 10 times as tough as us. So I think overall we were very lucky to be able to train as much as we did, be able to play as much as we did. So I think we're very lucky in that space.
What are we going to get this year? The Shield team just missed out. You obviously got to the final. You had that amazing win late in the season just to get to the final. And then a younger team for one-day cricket, of which you're leading both teams. What do we expect this year?
I think we're getting a nice balance now between the experience in the side, and Matt is now becoming one of those experienced members, as you can tell with the grey hairs on the side of his head, and that youthfulness coming through as well. We have been able to play quite a few youngsters in the last couple of years, especially in the one-day competition, based on the season and back-to-back games. We've sort of prioritised Shield cricket. But having a look at the schedule this year, I think we've got more of an opportunity to play full-strength sides in both formats, and really, push our cases for both trophies. Obviously, we had a really good year in the Shield last year, and that's backed up from the previous 6 or 7 years as well, where we keep contending for it and keep putting our hands up for that Sheffield Shield. But that balance between the experience and the youth coming through, I think, is starting to become really, really good.
Are you an experienced player, Matt, or are you still a developing player? What bracket do you put in? Pete just said then that you're one of the more of the leaders now of the team, because you've been around now for 7 or 8 years at this level, maybe even a few more than that.
Yeah, I think this is my 9th season involved with the Vics. But I think you said, am I still developing? Yeah, absolutely. I think players say it'll be interesting to see what Huss says later on, how long he developed for. I think you're always learning, up until you retire, I think. So, in terms of experience, I've definitely been around for a while, but still sort of slowly building each year, I think, and probably haven't yet had my breakout year that I've sort of been hoping for, but there's certainly positive signs there, and I think it's just a consistency thing at this stage, and hopefully this year's year. But I've always sort of seen myself as in that sort of middle age bracket, especially nowadays with I suppose there's a core group of older guys in your Pattinsons, your Hollands, Bolland, even Harris and Petey as well.
I thought you were going to leave me out there for a second.
And then we've got a massive group of young blokes coming through. So I think I'm sort of sitting in the middle man there. So it's been good in a way. The young boys sort of coming to me if they're a little bit too intimidated to go up to one of the senior boys. So I feel like I've the last couple of years definitely stepped up. With the leadership with the younger boys.
I'm interested from a captaincy point of view, Pete. You've got all these young bowlers coming through. The batting is pretty solid and pretty stable and fairly experienced. You've got, you got Boland, you got Pattinson, you got Holland, and then you've got all these young kids coming through. And Perry was obviously one of the standouts in Shield cricket last year. You've got a young spinner that goes all right too. From a captaincy point of view, how hard is that to juggle, or is it easy to juggle because you've got so many options?
Having options is great. First and foremost, where they're pushing each other, which is the great thing. When you got such a young group, they constantly coming in for extra hits, extra trainings. Making sure that they can get better and better each day, which is awesome. And but then with that enthusiasm comes a little bit of inexperience and in certain situations, sort of how to play the game and. Sort of, especially in one-day cricket, I think there are little nuances that you can only learn by playing games and getting them under your belt. So the more we can keep blooding these young players during the season, the better that will be for future years with us and potentially getting a nice little dynasty as well going again with these young players.
Do you sense, Matt, that Pete, from a captaincy point of view, he's never scared to give the ball to the young guys in high-pressure situations? Like we've seen Perry stand up at really important times, Murphy particularly late in the year.
Yep.
Do you feel that when you're at first slip, Pete's at second slip, that the trust he's got in the entire group?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone trusts everyone there. Even the young bowlers, if they're almost putting their hand up to get the ball in those high-pressure scenarios. So I suppose that probably makes Pete's job a bit easier when the guys actually want the ball rather than sort of being sitting on the fence and say, give it to Duck or give it to Baz. Like, it's good to see the young boys coming through actually wanting the ball and wanting to do well in those high pressure situations.
I think a great showcase of that was actually the Shield final that we played last year, and although the result didn't go away. Guys like Sutherland and Perry just kept coming and coming all day with the ball, which was awesome from such young players playing in their first Shield final, first big game, like to keep charging in right to the end. It was great, and it shows what we're trying to build here, the type of cricket that we want to play. Sort of winning from any position and never really being out of the game.
I think this is for both of you. That thing about what you're trying to build and what you stand for, is that something that's led by you as captain, Chris as coach, or is it what Victorian cricket stands for? And it's sort of come through the generations of good, hard, sustainable cricket. I'm interested in that whole where culture comes from with this particular team. To both of you. Yeah,
well, for me, it's always been player led in the teams that I've played for, and I think. You can see that in the 3 years where we went back to back to back in the Shield. We had a different coach each year, but the playing group was still solid enough that we were able to call each other out, but also pat each other on the back when we did the right thing. And when those situations came to learn and get better, we were teaching each other and helping each other as a group. Obviously, the coach is there to facilitate and help and get us better as well, but. I was leaning on Chris Rogers, David Hussey, Rob Quiney, John Hastings, Cam White, Matthew Wade when I was growing up. And to have that knowledge be passed down is huge. So now that's that's something I'm trying to do to young players, and I'm sure something that Matt's trying to do now as well.
Yeah, just going off that, I think this year was, particularly important because some of the senior players now, like your Bolins and Pattinsons, even Duck to an extent, who's had a child as well, they were all away for probably the first 2-3 months of this pre-season. So it was purely just the young boys around. So it was sort of hard for them to, I suppose, learn off those older guys in those few months. Yeah. So we, I remember having a good couple of sessions of like a sort of culture building sessions of, we call it the coffee club. So we get in groups of 3 or 4 and it might take an hour. We might go for a walk around the lake or grab a coffee, and it's purely led by, or mainly led by John Merlo and Will Bukowski, off a podcast around, I think Maxie Gordon did a podcast around the culture of the Ds and how they sort of speak to each other in a professional way. And I think we tried to bring that into our sort of culture and just speak to each other nicely or nicer. And just that whole respect and getting to know each other better. So this coffee club was get to know each other better. We'd have a sheet of questions like it could be as simple as, if you hit someone's car, would you go up to them and leave a note, or would you drive off? Like just stuff like that. Like
you'd definitely drive off, wouldn't you?
What do I say?
You've paused.
If I didn't have a paper and pen, I'd wait for them to come back. So I'd definitely do the good thing.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah,
you're almost not playing the first game.
Yeah. If it was Pete's car,
if there's a bang on my car now, I know who it is.
So yeah, it was really good to get all the young boys involved in that sort of culture setting thing while the older guys weren't around. But then once they did come back, it was even better for them to actually, tell them what we've been doing and getting them involved. We weren't necessarily trying to change the culture; it's more just teaching those younger boys, what we're about, and I think it's been really good so far this year.
Now, before we let Pete go, because you're going to hang around to chat to Dave Hussey a little bit later on, have you got one question you want to ask him? Because I've got one, but I'm going to let you go first.
How about you go first, and I'll sit on it.
I'll go first. All right. I'll go first. Now, I want to talk to you about playing for Australia again. Now, there's an Indian tour next year.
Yep.
Now, we always, the default position is, Pete Handscomb's good against spin, so he's a chance to play these subcontinental tours. I don't know whether that annoys you or that's seen as a compliment. Can you get back in there? Is that still something that drives you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm 31 now, so, Mike Hussey debuted at 31 and had a pretty good test career. So, and even Chris Rogers started playing again at 35, played for a couple of years. So it's definitely not out of the realms to play again. Something that I'm pushing for, that's for sure. I'm still talking to, George Bailey and getting a feel for what I need to do, but ultimately it's make runs. But you've done that
the last 2 years. You've made a lot of runs.
Yeah, and feeling good. But you also need a position to come up in the team as well. And when the test team is as strong as it is and performing quite well, it doesn't matter how many runs you score, they stay in and they keep performing. So, yeah, my aim is still to be on that test tour to India. Even if it's just as a backup, somehow just get in there. I do like playing against spin, but I also play in Australia for most of my career, and which is mainly against quicks. So I like to think I can still play the fast ball.
So does that annoy you that it's always seen as, he's good against spin? Or?
It is a compliment.
Yeah.
And if it does help me get on subcontinent tours, which it has done before, then that's great. But also, don't forget I do like batting in Australia as well, where it is fast and bouncy, and I can play a few cuts and pulls if need be.
All right, your turn.
Far away. I've got a couple. So first one is just on golf. I'll just be light on this one. So how's a golf game? I know you got the bug, and you a member out at Growling Frog, which is just south of New South Wales there.
Beautiful course, by the way, for those listening.
Handicap? How's it going?
Official handicap 8.7. Not too bad, but yeah, it's a bit dodgy when the big stick's not on. It is
a long course.
It's a long course. It's a long walk, but it's beautiful, especially when that sunset starts coming through. couple of beers on the back nine, mate. It's all right.
And another one, just on your driving skills. So how many cars have you been through in the last 3 or 4 years?
Have I driven or have I crashed?
Well, both, because you're written off all the time.
No. So Shorty always sits in the passenger seat when I'm driving on away tours. And obviously whoever gets in the passenger seat's the navigator.
Right.
Always has to be the navigator. He always we'll be coming up to a road, it'll be like 50 metres to turn. I'm flying at 80 and I'll be like, gosh, turn left here. So he puts me under the pump a bit. But yeah, I've had the odd prang, maybe two or three prangs, but never my fault. Always someone coming into the back of me rather than me going into the back of them.
I've heard it all, Whitey.
2 or 3 means 5 or 6, doesn't it?
That's
Bit of tax, yeah.
Good luck for the season. We're all looking forward to seeing you back out there playing Victorian colours. Hopefully it starts well and we'll see what happens from there.
Beauty. Thanks, boys.
Pete Handscomb joining us on the first edition of the Vic State Cricket Podcast. We're going to go and talk to the women next, the captain and the vice captain of the Victorian team.